SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Toyota Brookhaven services all makes and models. That could be why we were voted best service department the past 2 years. Come see why. Exit 40 Brookhaven or online at ToyotaBrookhaven.com. Great service, great savings. At Toyota Brookhaven, we deliver.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy.
How y'all doing? It's me. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross this morning. Lance, I am already jealous of you starting the day this early. You went to make some coffee right before the show began.
Yeah.
I tried to do the same, and I am out of K-Cups. I've got some regular coffee, and I went to I've got this thing called a mocha pot. Do you know what a mocha pot is?
No idea. If it's like a French press, maybe. But
I think it's the same, but different. It's
more complicated.
Right. It uses reverse pressure. You put the water in the bottom and the coffee in the top, and it pressures the water through the coffee, and it actually makes a very strong coffee. It's almost like a less expensive version of an espresso machine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I love espresso. I used to be a
So I
kind of
went
a
to
junkie.
open that up, and I apparently did not clean out the coffee filter from the last time I made coffee, and it is a giant, disgusting block of mold, and I don't know what to do.
That sounds like when you go to deer camp and you hadn't been in a while, and you pull the coffee maker out, and you're like, nah.
I'll take off fast.
Yeah, that's what kind of led me to the French press. Honestly, was going to deer camp and not being there for a couple of months and getting there, and the coffee maker is all gummed up, and you're like, no, I need coffee. And then I did the old school way. I just like boil water and make it. And then I was always liked the French press, so I finally left one up at camp, and the old guys were like, "What is this? What do you do with this thing?" Yeah, what do you do with this? That's how you make coffee with that. Like, oh, okay. Well,
I've never had a French press. I don't even know how to use one. I saw the mocha pot somewhere and got it off Amazon. I may have to get. I don't know. I don't know if I trust running it through the dishwasher.
Yeah, I might look into one of those mocha pots. So if it makes a poor man's espresso, that's gotten pretty expensive. I used to get one for like 50 cents, maybe $1, an espresso. You can't do that anymore in most places. So making it yourself, that's the way to go.
Well, and it will give you like a full cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's just stronger. So it's probably like a quad shot espresso, maybe even more than that.
But that'll get you going.
I have zero caffeine this morning, so it should be interesting as we go on. It is the Friday before Memorial Day. We've actually got an action-packed show today. Mike Hurst will join us. He's the current chair of the Mississippi GOP, but I wanted to talk with him in his capacity as former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi, all of the legal challenges the Trump administration is facing. So we'll get into that after 7 o'clock today. Also, State Rep Jimmy Fondren, Treasurer David McRae. We'll talk to Iulia Mendel. She is the former press secretary, President Zelenskyy. We'll talk with her about the peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. A big prisoner swap announced this morning, and I'm very excited about this. Archie Manning will be on the show today.
Yeah, that's something to be excited about. I mean, he's kind of seen it and done it all. He is an American legend, a living legend. And then you got two sons that were absolutely amazing football players. A third one who could have been, he got injured before his day got started in Cooper, and just a great family, and have done so much, accomplished so much, I should say, even outside of football. It's a great American family, and I can't wait to hear what citizens. He has to say. Yeah,
they give back to the community so much. The Manning Passing Academy is such an important role in the development of so many players. And yesterday, the college football NCAA, the college football playoff committee, I don't even know if they realize who's in charge of this anymore. Announced more changes to the college football playoffs. They're going to expand it again to 14 or 16 teams. They didn't say which, but they're going to add at least 2 more teams to the playoffs and make a change I think everybody wanted to see after this year's playoffs, and that the conference champions will receive automatic bids into the playoffs, but they will not receive an automatic bye. So they'll do seeding, and the top 4 teams will get the bye weekend, and then everybody else falls according to their seeding and their rankings. So even if it would mean, who were the teams this year that were awful? I can't even remember. It was so bad that just got blown out in their games that got the automatic bye.
That's a good question. I don't remember. That seems like 4 years ago. I just remember that Ole Miss lost to Kentucky and, kept them out of the playoffs. So, we'll see. This is a lot of changing going on in a very short period of time, and it makes for a lot of fun and confusion too.
I think it's confusing everybody, but most importantly, they've got to figure out the NIL and the transfer portal. So we'll ask him his thoughts on all of that. I lived in Indianapolis for about 10 years. I moved there a year or 2 after Peyton Manning was drafted by the Colts, and I talked about Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, passing yesterday when I was filling in for Gerard. But this is my favorite Peyton Manning story. Obviously, he's a big fan from New Orleans, big fan of the band Better Than Ezra, and I had Better Than Ezra playing a concert for the radio station I was managing at the time, and I got a call at the bar where we were doing Jingle Jam. It's December. It's I don't forget whatever day of the week it was, probably a Sunday because of the story. I get a call from the bar manager. Yells down from the office and says, "Hey Scott, you got a call here from it's from an airphone." Oh, great! It's one of the bands. They're not going to be able to make the show. I get up there to take the call. Sands, it's Peyton Manning. Okay. How can I help you, sir? I want to bring my boys down to see Better Than Ezra tonight. Can you get us in? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can. You can be sure of that. And I struck a deal with him that I'd get him and the offensive line and whoever else he wanted in to the show, set him up in VIP. If we went and bought a bunch of footballs, he signed them and came on stage to introduce Better Than Ezra and throw him out to the audience. And you can imagine the crowd in Indianapolis went wild. They had just won a playoff game. But then after the game, he wants to go to this hole-in-the-wall bar across the street with Better Than Ezra after the show before the band leaves. And it's December in Indianapolis, so there is nothing but ice all over the parking lot. So I hold Peyton Manning's arm and help walk him across the parking lot to this bar. And at a couple of points along the way, I can walk this, Sands. Sir, you don't understand. If you were to slip and fall, the headline tomorrow in the paper is going to be Radio DJ breaks star quarterback's arm before playoffs.
It would have been, too. You would have been the scapegoat for that deal. It was very smart thinking, Sandsy. You got to escort the man, even if he didn't.
Pariah in that town.
Yeah, you would have been. You wouldn't have been able to live there. Especially at the apex of the career of Peyton Manning, That was just, that'd have been a no-no.
Just an icon. Have you seen speaking of great quarterbacks, I haven't watched this yet. I don't have a Netflix subscription. Have you watched the Brett Favre documentary on Netflix?
I have, yes. Yeah, very much so.
So some of the reviews I've read online are that it's really just a hit piece about Brett.
I would say half of it is probably. The second part of the documentary seemed to be a little bit more aggressive in that stance, but early and going through the biography part and what kind of quarterback he was, what kind of player he was, what kind of college player and those things were real early in it, and they kind of slid as you went on into a little bit more of the negative stuff. And I would say it's probably about halfway through. So if you want the good stuff, you can kind of watch the first half. The second half was a little bit more of the hit piece, and they did get much more aggressive in tone as we went through the later years. But he had some things he was dealing with too. So
And I mean, Brett's no saint, but I don't know if they treated him fairly or not. He certainly doesn't believe that they did. I saw some of his posts on X after it came out.
Well, he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't any part of the documentary, so I guess if he wanted his voice to be heard, maybe he should have been there and a part of that. That's, just a thought, because there seemed to be a lot of folks that had a lot to say about him, and it was, some was very positive, honestly. The sportscaster who had became famous, because of the cowgirl kind of picture in Brent Musburger, that part was very detailed. I thought they spent too much time in that one piece, honestly. But again, that's just my opinion. It's very hard to find anything that's always flowery with touchy subjects. So, but I do think they did justice to how great of a quarterback and how great of a player and some of his legacy earlier in the documentary. But yeah, they did get off into the other things, and I felt kind of exhausted it a little bit too much. So yeah, it seemed more like a hit piece at the end. I've heard this 12 times already. You could have, You know how some of that stuff is.
Worth watching as a Brett Favre fan?
I would watch it, yeah. I mean, honestly, I found it very informative, and I was always a Brett Favre fan, so I watched him play live at Southern a couple times, and was a big fan of him when he got to Green Bay. So, yeah, just try to take everything with a grain of salt.
He was friends with my roommates when I lived in Hattiesburg, so I met Brett quite a few times during his time in Hattiesburg as well. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross this morning, Lance. It's great to be here with you. C-Spire text line is also open at 601-879-4395.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Five escaped inmates from New Orleans remain at large. And now police are starting to get false tips from people, and the investigation into that case continues. By the way, Lance, I mentioned this the other afternoon on with Gerard. You can actually wager on Polymarket, one of the online apps, who the next inmate to be captured will be. Polymarket lets you bet on just about everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I would imagine you need to increase the options and be like, where will they be found? Like, will it be at Diddy's house, or what do we got going on here? Where will they be found? One was found in French Quarter drinking a beer, wasn't it?
Yeah, they continue to show surveillance video of these inmates just walking around the French Quarter, up and down Bourbon Street and Baronne and some of the other neighborhood streets around the French Quarter. My guess, based on some of the people that I've seen comment on the story from the FBI, former FBI agents, is that they're probably all holed up together somewhere with an outside accomplice. But the alarming part of the story is how much we continue to learn about the lack of security at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, it seemed pretty laid back is an understatement on that.
150 locks in that jail need to be replaced. That seems like you should make that a priority at some point.
You would think. It is a jail, right?
There's supposed to be locks that work there. We're also learning that the deputy assigned to monitor security cameras at the time, left their workstation to get food, and apparently they missed a bunch of opportunities to notice that the inmates had escaped. At 5:15 a.m. when breakfast was served in the jail, several meal trays were left untouched. That should have been a clue, and the overnight check-ins by deputies could have either stopped the escape or alerted guards earlier than 8:30 a.m. when jail staff first discovered the escape during morning head count. Might want to do the head count a little bit sooner than 8:30, or at least check to find out why the inmates aren't eating breakfast.
Sounds more like a boarding home than a prison or a jail. But
the whole story is just odd. I think
gracious.
When
you get 10
people have been arrested.
10 plus are able to skirt through a hole behind a toilet because a guard cut the water off and took off to go get dinner. Man,
and they apparently knew how lax security was, leaving those taunting messages on the wall on their way out.
I mean, that's just a bizarre one. They probably ought to figure out, who to fire on that one. I don't think I don't think some jobs need to be kept. Honestly, I hate to say that, but you just let prisoners out into the public, so you might need another job.
and arrests being made. I think 4 people have been arrested in connection with helping them escape.
Yeah.
Some of them working in the jail. Last night,
10 escape, 20 come back, huh?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it's going to work.
Continue the overcrowding problem.
Yeah.
Southern Miss won last night, beat Old Dominion, and I think they now advance to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game.
They will. Old Dominion and Troy will play. Let me see. I had the thing pulled up here. Southern Miss won easily, beating Old Dominion yesterday, 10-0, 7 innings. Coastal defeated Marshall 4-2. So you got number 6 seed Old Dominion will play Troy today, and then you'll have Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns will face Marshall. Southern Miss will not play until Saturday. They're going to play the winner of the game 11, which is the Old Dominion Troy game. So that's who's going to be locked down there today, and that'll determine who Southern Miss has. Southern Miss has been hot, buddy. Let me tell you, they've been destroying everybody. And,
I don't understand all of the seeding in college baseball, but I was talking to Borky yesterday, and it's looking pretty good for Southern Miss to be able to host the regional now because they won last night.
The pecking order I saw yesterday had Southern Miss in a hosting position in about 14, I think, as far as it may have even been in 12. But if you keep winning, others lose, you have a tendency to kind of help your cause. Ole Miss has an opportunity to do the same thing. They'll play Arkansas at 4 o'clock. Today, so Arkansas number 2. Ole Miss lost 2, 1-1 against them in prior competition. This if they win this one, that would make them even money against a number 2 opponent in the country. I think that would be the lock there, Scott. But they may have done enough already. It's hard to say when you get to this point. There's so many good teams, so many deserving teams to be in the top 16 in the hosting side. But Ole Miss is right there. Vanderbilt, Tennessee will have the early game. And then you got Ole Miss, Arkansas, A&M, and LSU also today. So A&M got hot. They beat Auburn also, took out Mississippi State first, and has LSU lined up today. LSU has not had to do a whole lot yet, so they're in a position where they're rested. A&M's played a couple games, so a lot of great baseball left. But, who knows who's going to end up with the host sites at this point. I think the top 8 are probably a little bit more secure. But as you get into that 9 through 16, it's a little dicey potentially, and I wouldn't want to go out on a limb.
How is LSU this year?
LSU was again very good. They were number 1 at one point in the season, and in the top 5 a great deal. So, it's they're all good at this point. The way I see it, it's hard to look at any of these teams that are in the SEC still playing good baseball. They beat up on each other so much during the year. And the Sun Belt, again, I think that's one of the underrated conferences out there with Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina, Troy. Those are 3 really, really good baseball teams. And there's 3 or 4 others in that league. So going through that league as well as Southern Miss has is really a testament to how good a team they have. And Coastal is loaded as well. So Coastal is looking like a host spot. Southern Miss is looking like a host spot. So as you take those 2, potentially it might be an SEC team that loses one of those. But Florida State's had a great season. Both Oregon teams have been, in that top 16, Oregon State and Oregon. So it's a mad dash to the finish line is kind of always what it felt like when you get to this point of baseball. You've logged so many games, and then you go, well, 1 or 2 really matter, after you've played 60. This is the way it is.
Yeah. Every game starts to matter at this point. I honestly, and we've talked about this before, Lance, I haven't really followed college baseball that closely. Obviously, I've been watching the Mississippi school since I started to sit in for everybody here on SuperTalk Mississippi. But every June, I try to make a trip home down to the coast, and I always stop in the SuperTalk Mississippi offices, and I see Kenny and all the guys in all work has stopped. They're all watching. They're LSU fans, and they're watching the LSU game this time of the year when I go down to visit.
Well, yeah, it's LSU is always such a great program. Mississippi State had a great finish to the season. 2 iconic programs there that are very close, here. And you got Ole Miss that has been a team in the last 20 or so years that has really paid more attention, I think, to its potential. Mike Bianco's had a great run. State's gone through some coaches. You never know what that recipe is kind of where I'm going. LSU has had a handful of coaches since Bertman, but they've also had some great success, and they've had some seasons where not so much, but they're always going to be right there with talent. They're always going to be right there with the attendance and the environment, and it's really hard to to go down there and play, honestly. The old stadium, the old Alex Box, was a lot of fun, but it was a little intimidating at times too because everybody's standing right on top of you. The new Alex Box is a little bit more spread out, but yeah, it was always a blast to play at Mississippi State and LSU, and nothing different now. The environments are just bigger and better. So if you still look at those two, to me, as the two pinnacle programs in the SEC, with others that are right there. A&M has an amazing place. Played there my senior year, and before they were in the SEC. Arkansas, absolutely beautiful facilities, great fans. And, I mean, so it's just so much great baseball. And we kind of get, I think, tunnel vision here if you're an SEC fan, that you don't really look out and see the other great teams out there sometimes. But Southern Miss, to me, I mean, that looks like a World Series team to me. And I don't want to jinx them and say they're going to win it, but the way they're put together, they just really have the right ingredients. And I'm really pulling for them. Know some of those kids' parents on that team, and these are guys that just really stuck with Southern Miss, had other options to go and probably get NIL money, and you've got to give those kids a pat on the back, and because that's what it's really all about, is teamwork, competition, building something that maybe is unique and that no one else has done before. And I think that team at Southern has got a lot of those ingredients. I would love to see them go a long way, not to take away from the other two that have opportunities either, and Ole Miss and State. But, yeah, something about that Southern team is really special this year.
And what it means for the community, what it means for Hattiesburg, for Oxford to have regionals in those towns is just absolutely huge.
Well, I'm proud of State, too. I have to say this. I mean, it was a season in which a lot was put on.
A lot of change.
You had a lot of change and a lot of players that, cycled in and out. And it wasn't going the way that they wanted, but they kept playing good baseball, even though they were losing some games. And you make the difficult decision to change coaches, and then the team really just gets a new focus. And I think that's very, very hard to do. And it's happened before with Mississippi State with Gary Henderson, who was the pitching coach, took them to the World Series. And then they went with a new coach. He did not get the job, but it's just a testament to me to the young men and the staff that have kept it together, because now they have an opportunity to do something really special, whereas a few weeks ago, I don't think you'd have been saying that, So congratulations to Mississippi State for playing their way and getting, staying relevant in a season which was difficult.
Next up, Ole Miss, number 2 Arkansas, 3:00 Central Time. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When they play their music, that hard rock music, they back it with a lot of flash, but it's still that same old backbeat rhythm that really, really kicks them in the. They say the hard rock and roll is the beat.
How y'all doing? Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. And it's all the talk about sports. Let's not forget it's one of the biggest weekends in racing with the Formula One race in Monaco, Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte, and the Indianapolis 500.
I bet Max Verstappen wins something. So he's usually a winner. So, I'm going with Max.
So I was talking to Rhino yesterday. He's an F1 guy. Yeah, I like going to races. I won't usually watch one on TV. The Indianapolis 500 is an exception. I mentioned earlier I lived in Indianapolis, and going to that race is just the most amazing experience. You've got hundreds of thousands of people in a 2.5-3 mile square area for hours, and the pomp and circumstance that goes along with it. With an added feature this year, you and Richard may have talked about it today, Carb Day in Indianapolis. And it's the running of the Weenie 500.
Yes, I sent that to Richard the other day, the Weenie cars. I love it. Yeah.
First of all, I didn't realize there were 6 Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles.
Yeah, there's 6 of them. That's right.
And they're all going to be on the Speedway track.
They make it look really fun. I'm not sure the event is going to be as fun as it made it look in the promo, but you probably need to watch it.
It's at 1 o'clock or 12:45 Central Time, streaming on IndyCar on Fox on X and the Fox Sports app. I'll be tuned in. I can't imagine that they're going to let the Wienermobiles go full speed.
I mean, I don't think they can go but like 60, maybe.
Those things are going to tip over. I have driven my truck on the racetrack before on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and those banks are unreal.
Steep, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, you could see they had a promo where they were running them, and they were close enough to the Wienermobiles that it looks fast, but it's not fast. No. I mean, it's like 60 miles an hour. They're not doing 250 miles an hour or something. So
I'm guessing it's going to be scripted out to some degree. The drivers probably
somebody knows who's
supposed
winning.
To go.
Yeah, you're not going to see a bunch of Rubbins racing Cole.
No. Yeah, but you can cheer for your favorite weenie along the way.
I would imagine it's going to be more Talladega Nights, kind of, than would be my guess. But, it looked fun. It really did.
The Midwest will be represented by the Chi Dog, the Chicago Dog. The New York Dog will represent the East Coast. The Slaw Dog representing the Southeast. The Sonoran Dog representing the Southwest. Chili Dog representing the South. And the Seattle Dog representing the Northwest.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm a Chili Dog man, so I'm in the South.
At the end of the race, the winning driver will receive a condiment spray.
That sounds terrible, but do you get a choice of condiment, or is this going to be just a mix of mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, and relish?
It's going to be a mess, is what it is, and I just hope they get it cleaned up in time for Sunday.
Where's Joey Chestnut when you need him? They need to.
Joey Chestnut will make the competitive eater. Joey Chestnut will make his appearance. I'm sure some sort of competition in Indianapolis this weekend.
Guy's an icon too.
A few birthdays today. I don't know if you got this list. Jewel, 51 today.
Oh wow, yeah, she's older than me. That's hard to believe.
And still looks amazing.
Yeah, she does.
Ken Jennings,
throwback though, yeah.
Who won 74 straight episodes for $2.5 million on Jeopardy and now hosting the show.
Yeah, that guy. I mean, how do you have a run like that? Do you have like the book or something?
I don't know how you know that much information. I mean, I have a lot of worthless trivia in my head from doing radio for 30 years.
Yeah, but then, I mean,
but not that much.
That's like on Total Recall, man. You could just ask him a question. He spits it out like a machine. For 20, how many episodes was it?
74.
74, yeah. I mean, he was just, I remember that run too. It's like, yeah, that's the guy that needs to host the show one day.
He's kind of dry. I don't watch Jeopardy a lot, but I've seen him host a few times when I was flipping through channels. It's kind of dry. He's no Alex Trebek.
No, that is not his background. His background was answering questions correctly, apparently. Well, you got Douglas Fairbanks. Don't forget about him. He's been celebrated for like 4 days this week. I'm not sure which of the days is his actual birthday, but American actor icon was in all the early films. Douglas Fairbanks.
Drew Carey, 67, hosting Price is Right now, and I think he does a pretty good job with that. Price is Right is one of those shows. I haven't seen it growing up with only 3 channels on TV. When you would get sick and stay with your Meemaw, you would watch Price is Right and then all of her stories.
Well, and Bob Barker had that unique microphone, right? Had the long, skinny microphone with a little thing on the top, and everybody else is holding the Coke can looking one, but he had that little mic, but Bob, yeah. And then you always had basically the PETA commercial, inside of every. Get your dog spayed and neutered at the end of every one of them. And they I always loved the contestant that would look down and go, yeah, 1,001 on the price. And they would win, and the other would be so upset. But yeah, that was fun.
Joan Collins, 92. I didn't know she was still around, but good to hear. Good to know that.
Rosemary Clooney, George's auntie. Her birthday, 1928.
I was trying to find something interesting that happened in history today.
Two things.
Really find anything.
Two things are pretty cool. I mean, you're a math guy, and when it comes to the stock market, American mathematician John Nash, actually won the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1994. That was my freshmanish year in college, so I was a big fan of his as I went through political science and study. But he was known for his work and landmark work on game theory and Although he struggled with paranoid schizophrenia, he died at 86 years old. So that is John Nash, the great Nobel Prize economist. And you also had, this was the day in history where China took over Tibet. So kind of a big deal. And they annexed it in 1951 and kind of started the landmark movement of independence for Tibet. But
in 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was released, which was the worst of the Indiana Jones movies. And that may be a hot take, especially when the fourth one with the Nazis. I'm excited this weekend. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is released, the 8th Mission Impossible movie.
And it is not the final reckoning, I assure you.
I don't really go to movies as much as I used to. I love movies, but don't really go that much. Mm-hmm. This one is one I want to see on the big screen.
Well, the last real one I saw in the theater was Ford versus Ferrari, and that was really worth seeing in the theater. Most of them I just kind of wait till they come out, but Mission Impossible might be maybe one I would go see. There's so much action, and of course Tom Cruise he does all of his own stunts, so
which is amazing.
Well, he's 2 feet tall, so I mean it's like throwing a dice out on a board. I mean that's what you're dealing with Tom Cruise.
I've had this conversation about Tom Cruise before too. I've got some friends who won't go to see these huge movies like Top Gun Maverick and now the Mission Impossible movies because of his ties to Scientology. But what I will say about Tom Cruise, and there is, you are supporting him, but he's going to make his money regardless of whether or not you spend your $15 to go see a movie, is for a star as big as he is in Hollywood, he's been one of the guys that has been, I think, quiet when it comes to politics.
Yeah, I think that the shock sessions in Scientology have kept him, kept him in line. Maybe
I saw a clip the other day where it was an interviewer tried to pull him into politics, asking about Donald Trump's tariffs to keep movie production in the United States, and he refused to answer the question. I respect that.
I do too, man. You're
so many actors and actresses dive into politics and alienate half the country. Tom Cruise has figured out a way to be a star and remain quiet on the political front, and
their jobs to entertain.
Smart move.
Yeah, their jobs to entertain. It's kind of like athletes. I don't take advice from athletes. I don't take advice from celebrities when it comes to my politics or the things that I want to buy and shop. Some people do, and that's fine. That's just not where I get my opinions. And so, yeah, I'm much more. I like Tom Cruise's movies, going all the way back to when he was a youngin'. So I don't really pay much attention to his crazy beliefs, and as long as he doesn't spew them, politically and all that, and start calling people Nazis, let him do what he wants to do. I don't care, and I'm with you on that. I respect that he stays away from politics and has learned the place and where he makes his money is not playing politics.
Well, what's interesting is that you can say that, but so many of us will applaud a Kid Rock for defending President Trump and standing up to President Trump, and then blast Bruce Springsteen when he says something on stage, which I think it's I grew up a Bruce Springsteen fan in the 80s. Wasn't one of my favorites, but he was certainly a big star in my high school days. Now I find his music and his concerts somewhat boring, just like John Mellencamp on stage.
The Cougar.
But to do that in a foreign country, I think is I remember the whole uproar over the Dixie Chicks doing something similar with George Bush. So if you're gonna say something, be prepared for the consequences after you say it.
I think it's fair on both sides, right? I mean, what's good for one's good for the other, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me if Dixie Chicks want to support this or that. But again, that's not going to influence me. But if that's where they want to play their game in terms of entertaining people, if that's how they believe it's best, I mean, I can't. Who am I going to say anything to them? But personally, I think they ought to just stick to the entertaining side. That's my opinion.
All right, I'm Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. We've got your lottery information next year on Super Talk Mississippi.
Nothing in particular. How can you say I go about things the wrong way? I am human and I need to be loved, just like everybody else does.
from the Venable Glass.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day. All on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
All of your lottery information for this morning. Scott stands in for Richard Cross. No winner in the Lotto America. The jackpot tomorrow, $35.56 million, or a cash value $15.98 million. The numbers were last drawn Wednesday, 1, 14, 15, 19, 31, Starball 9, and the bonus multiplier was 3. Also no jackpot in the Powerball. That drawing worth $163 million tomorrow, or a cash value $73.3 million. The numbers from Wednesday night, 9, 29, 31, 34, 43, Powerball 2, and the multiplier was 2. Double play numbers from Wednesday, 4, 9, 21, 37, 56, and the Powerball 2. No winner in the Mega Millions.
It's getting competitive here. Yeah, it's getting competitive. You got Powerball at 163, Mega Millions at 154. Who would you project to be the most popular game as we move forward? Who's going to have the biggest jackpot?
I have no clue. The Powerball and the Mega Millions are both very close. Yeah. The drawing is tonight. If I don't win that one, then I'll buy the Powerball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good strategy.
Right. The cash value for Mega Millions, $69 million. Numbers from Tuesday were 18, 30, 33, 55, 64, Mega Ball 11. No jackpot winner in the Mississippi Match 5 either. That drawing is tonight for $673,000. Thursday night's drawing numbers were 8, 18, 20, 31, 35. The Mississippi Lottery announced yesterday the latest winners of the 2025 NASCAR Powerball Playoff. Players from Jackson and Vicksburg each won $3,000. This year's promotion will have 15 Mississippi winners, and all will advance to compete in the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff for a shot at the $1 million grand prize. Next drawing is Thursday, the 5th of June. 3 lucky players, each winning $2,500. To enter, sign up to be a Mississippi Lottery Insider at mslottery.com. Automatically receive the latest entry form. And if you are a winner over the weekend, hope you are, hold on to your winning tickets. The lottery office will be closed for Memorial Day on Monday, reopening on Tuesday. A lot of winners around the state yesterday. Cash 4 winners. Players from Clinton, Jackson, Crystal Springs, and Oxford each scored $845 on tickets from the Sprint Mart in Clinton, Quick Mart in Clinton, Fleetway in Crystal Springs, and Oxford Junction in Oxford. Meanwhile, players from Clinton, Waynesboro, Jackson, and Decatur each won $1,200 on tickets from Lakeside Food Mart in Clinton, Lakeside in Waynesboro, School Street, Valero in Ridgeland, and Love's Travel Stop in Lake. 2 players from Gulfport each won $2,600. One on a ticket from a Circle K in Gulfport and the other from Treasure Bay Casino. Players from Harrisville and Hazelhurst each won a very nice $3,100 on tickets from Panola Grocery in Panola and the 76 gas station in Hazelhurst. Port Gibson women won just over $4,000 on 3 tickets from Nick's One Stop in Port Gibson. A very lucky woman. 3 tickets cashed. Pascagoula man won $5,000 on a ticket from Munir Kasim Saeed DBA AM Food Mart in Pascagoula.
Nailed it.
And a Bogachita woman won $8,100 on 2 tickets from Be Quick in Brookhaven. Players from Flowood and Charleston each won $800 on tickets from Star Mart in Brandon and Little Market and Deli in Charleston. And a Pedal woman won $2,500 on a ticket from a Texaco Food Mart in Ellisville. So a lot of winners yesterday in the Mississippi Lottery. You can get all of the information at mslottery.com and enter that NASCAR Powerball Playoff. As we mentioned, big race weekend with the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte, the Indy 500, the F1. I don't believe there are any drivers that are doing both races this year, both the Indy and the Coca-Cola 600.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've heard of any, but it has happened before, huh?
What happens when they get rid of a penny?
We're
going to have to go to a nickel or a quarter to scratch for our scratch-offs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it costs more money to make the penny than the penny's worth.
It does. So
Like 2
I
pennies
talked
to
about
make a
that
penny,
yesterday,
yeah.
sitting in for a Gerard. It's like 13 or 14 cents to make a penny. The nickel is even more expensive. They should get rid of the nickel first.
It's hard for me to understand how that could be the case, but somebody that spent their life and money for most of my career, it's like it costs you more money to make the money than the money's worth. That just doesn't seem logical, but what do I know, huh?
And I know you spent time in finance. I don't know what happened about 20 minutes ago, but the S&P pre-market dropped about 80 points. So it could be an interesting day on the stock market.
Well, it is Friday, and you have a holiday Monday, so that usually has a little effect on things, and you don't get all the activity. Yeah, well, it's always fun with that pent-up aggression coming in on a Friday looking to Monday. I was always like, oh, no, not these days.
C-Spark text line open at 601-879-4395. We'll talk to Mike Hurst, chair of the Mississippi GOP and former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi, right after the 7 o'clock. Also, State Rep Jimmy Fondren and State Treasurer David McRae will join us. Very excited to have Archie Manning on in the 8 a.m. hour as well. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Fox News at the top of the hour and SuperTalk Mississippi News coming up.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. And if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services come in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan fitting your needs. Call today 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross this morning. State Rep Jimmy Fondren joining us later this hour along with the State Treasurer. But first, Mike Hurst is joining me. Mike Hurst is the chairman of the Mississippi GOP. But this morning I wanted to start relying on your experience, calling on your experience as a U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi. So, Mike, it's great to have you on. Nice to meet you.
Hey, great to be here, Scott. Thanks for the time.
Let's look at, and I don't even know where to begin. When you look at all of the legal challenges the Trump administration is facing, there is a litany of lawsuits facing him, and it seems to be growing on a daily basis with every executive order, with everything that the Trump administration begins to do. But so much of the litigation is focused on securing the border and making our country safe and deporting criminal illegal gang members who snuck into this country under the Biden administration that we want out. And Democrats and some states are challenging every single deportation along the way. How does this play out? And does President Trump have the time to win these cases and do what needs to be done to secure the country?
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend what the Democrats are doing here. They're sticking up for illegal aliens. They're trying to keep our borders open, and they're trying to make Americans less safe. So I can't for the life of me, as a former United States attorney and a longtime federal prosecutor, I can't understand why they're doing this. Right now, we have laws on the books. And remember, most of these Democrats are in Congress who are the ones that are complaining about all this. They make the laws, or they're supposed to make the laws. Let me put it that way. And they've made the laws in the past. We have the laws on the books. President Trump is simply trying to enforce our laws again because we didn't have enforcement of our laws in the last 4 years in the Biden administration. So I'm excited to see what the president's putting forward. You know, he's done more in the first 100 days than most presidents do in 4 years. And yeah, the Democrats are going to continue to litigate this, try to muck it up in court. But I think right now, with things getting to the United States Supreme Court quicker, I think we'll have an opportunity to get a lot of this through the court systems. And I think we'll have an opportunity for President Trump to implement his policies in this administration.
There's a lot of talk about suspending habeas corpus. Can you explain what that may mean and if it's even legal in terms that I can understand?
Yeah. Well, how much time do you have? I mean, habeas corpus goes back a long, long way, and so I don't want to get into too much of the weeds. What I would say is we have constitutional rights enshrined by our forefathers, and I would hope that we as a people, both Democrats and Republicans, could come together and could stand up for the rights that we have enshrined in our Constitution.
So what's the best path forward through the court system for Donald Trump to be able to get these criminals out of our country? Are we going to have hearings for every single person that needs to be deported? That seems unreasonable. They were allowed into the country without vetting and without going through the court system. Shouldn't we be allowed to expel them without that vetting process and going through the court system?
Well, let me first, for your listeners, debunk a myth that the Democrats continue to try to put out there, which is that
I think I lost my internet.
Somebody may be trying to log in, man.
Or
we lost him there for a second. Let me flip him around. I'll give him a call. You talk for a sec.
Sure.
This doesn't happen often. So.
Well, I expected it to happen on my end at some point during this show. But we're talking with Mike Hurst, the chairman of the GOP, former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi, about the legal challenges Donald Trump is facing, including now, and this is the latest lawsuit filed against the Trump administration over the dismantling of the Department of Education. That case is coming up on several fronts that he'll have to address as well. C-Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. My name is Scott Sands. I'm in for Richard Cross on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I'm working on it.
Lance is trying to get Mike back on. Don't really want to go into a different topic here. But later in the show today, we will have...
He's on the phone now, so we are back on the interview, ready to go.
Ready to go. Sorry about that, Mike. A little internet connection, but you're back on with us. We were talking about the myths that you were dispelling from the Democrats.
Yeah, the myth is that coming into our country is not a crime, and that's just false. That's absolutely false. Look it up in our United States Code. But what I want to make sure the American people understand is that right now we have the Democrats going to their hand-picked judges who were either appointed by President Biden or President Obama and trying to get an injunction against what President Trump has been voted by mandate to do in this country to enforce our laws. And that is un-American, it's unconstitutional, and these nationwide injunctions that these federal judges are implementing needs to be stopped. And I'm encouraged by the recent arguments before the United States Supreme Court that would do that.
You know, it's also encouraging to see some states like Mississippi that are showing cooperation with ICE to get this done. I just saw this morning that New Hampshire has become the first New England state to eliminate sanctuary cities in their state. And hopefully we'll see more states showing this kind of level of cooperation with the Trump administration.
Yeah, we have to have that cooperation. Federal law enforcement is tiny compared to our local and state law enforcement. And when I was United States Attorney in this great state of Mississippi, we had incredible cooperation with our state and locals. Of course, we had a few cities, a few Democrat, progressive, liberal mayors who did not want to join with us to enforce our immigration laws, and that's not okay, Scott. We have to work together to make sure that Americans are safe, and Americans are safe when those who are not authorized, are not legal coming into this country, when they're sent back to their home countries.
So it seems to me like the Democrat strategy is just to take every issue to court at this point. When we were reconnecting with you, I mentioned that the latest lawsuit against the Trump administration is attempting to block the dismantling of the Department of Education, something that the Trump administration, many Republicans have been working towards for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you don't get the votes, when you don't have the votes of the American people, when you don't have the popular majority vote of the American people, when you can't win all 7 swing states like President Trump did in the last election, I think the only recourse the Democrats have when they don't have the policy, they don't have the arguments, is to try to rush to the courts, and not just to any court. They are forum shopping and going to courts where the judges were specifically appointed by either President Biden or President Obama in most cases. And so, yeah, when you don't have the policy arguments and you don't have the American people backing you, the only recourse I guess you have is the federal courts.
So what can the Trump administration, what can Republicans do? How do we rein in some of these courts that are trying to legislate through the judicial process?
Well, again, I hope that now that we have a United States Supreme Court who is going to once again actually look at the law, call balls and strikes, and simply, say what the law is, not what, a specific judge wants it to be, that's encouraging. And especially here in Mississippi, that we're in the appellate circuit of the Fifth Circuit, which, again, as you know, is another court system that also just follows the law and reads the law as it's written. Those are encouraging signs. What I hope happens in the second Trump administration is what happened in the first Trump administration, which means we get more textualist, originalist judges appointed by President Trump and put on the bench. Because if that happens, that's a generational change for you and I and for our kids or our grandkids to make sure that the laws are enforced and the laws are upheld.
Unfortunately, the Trump administration, the clock is ticking. We're now just over 100 days into this. Midterms are going to be coming up. Most importantly, we've got to move some of these policies forward without tying up the administration and the court system for the next 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's right. But also on the flip side of that, Scott, is this president's done more in 100 days than, most presidents even talk about doing, much less do. And so I'm encouraged by that, the speed, the efficiency, the way they're handling things. Yes, we have to get a lot done, but so far, what I've seen them be able to do in this short amount of time is very encouraging.
Mike, it's great to meet you. I appreciate your time. We'll have to talk again soon and work out your technical connections.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate your time. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Find him on X at Mike Hurst, MS, chairman of the Mississippi GOP and former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi. Scott stands in for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. State Rep Jimmy Fondren joins me next.
Good morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Scott stands in for Richard Cross. Lance, before the 7 o'clock hour, I mentioned that pre-market, the S&P had dropped about 80 points. I just realized why. There was a Truth Social post from Donald Trump saying that the 50% tariff on the European Union will begin June 1st. So the trade war is back. There was also a post from the president earlier this morning at 4 a.m. I don't know when that guy sleeps, on tariffs on Apple products made outside the United States. So a couple of posts from the president sending the stock market down pre-market, but we'll keep an eye on that after the market opens today.
Hello. How are you doing?
Sorry
this is
that.
Dog. Yeah. My favorite memes of all time.
State Rep Jimmy Fondren is joining me now on Super Talk Mississippi. That was a WhatsApp call from Iulia Mendel, and I was afraid, I think she may have confused time zones. So I'll get. Yeah,
I can't imagine why. Being in Ukraine, what time is she doing? Some complex math this morning.
That's what I said. Look, honey, you're going to be on at 8:20. I have no idea what time that is where you are. You're going to have to figure out the math on your own. I don't need to.
I think that's what happened to our connection. I knew something bumped us. That was it. So no big deal.
That may have been it. Jimmy, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you, Scott. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Any big plans for this weekend?
I think we're going to run the motorboat out to Horn Island, probably hang out there, and maybe squeeze in. Snapper season opens today. I think my brother-in-law's out there right now. Hopefully he'll bring me something back, but I'm hoping Sunday or Monday I can make a trip.
I keep seeing stories from the coast about all this debris coming out of the Mississippi River that's washing up on all the islands and the beaches on the coast. Have you seen that?
Are you talking about the Bonnie Carey?
Yeah, it must be. I didn't go in depth into what the story was, but I saw a couple of beaches had to be closed because of the debris, and I think maybe Ship and maybe even Horn Island had a ton of debris washing ashore.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know the Bonnie Carey was getting close to where they have to, they have to open that spillway, which it kind of crushes the marine wildlife out there. And luckily, last I heard, it stayed below level where they didn't have to end up opening. But in the past, it's ruined. I mean, it's ruined a lot of animals out there. And I wish we could come up with a better solution, but it's either flood these people's houses or open a spillway, and it's a tough call to make.
What's happening in Jackson? You guys are going to have to meet for a special session to get a budget done before July, correct?
Yes. In the House, they don't really let the freshmen touch the money. So none of us are on a budget committee. It's probably smart, to be honest with you. But no, none of us are on Ways and Means. None of us are on appropriations, freshmen and legislators in the House. And so what I have heard is we're getting very close to a deal, if a deal's not already been struck, and rumors, returning within the next week or so to finalize everything.
Why couldn't this get done in regular order?
It's depends on who you ask. I think the speaker prior to session seemed to be very clear on, we want to meet these deadlines early. We want to have time for our members to read the bills and before they vote on these, huge appropriation bills, which is, over a $7 billion budget. And then the other chamber was sticking with tradition and expected a conference weekend. And then after that, that muddied the waters. And then you have the way the tax bill got passed. I know the Senate wasn't a big fan of that, and it seems to have some spillover into budget negotiations. But like I said, I mean, that's almost from the outside looking in, just because we're not on those committees as freshmen. But
getting the tax bill done was a big deal. Passing the elimination of the state income tax has gotten national recognition, and I think is really going to be a long-term benefit for the state economy.
It's going to be awesome. I think eliminating the income tax, I think there was appetite in the House. You could have done that immediately if you structured the bill right. The biggest thing in that bill I thought that was very important was the MDOT direct stream of revenue. They've kind of been shooting from the hip every year, wondering what their general appropriation is going to be. And now we've got a dedicated stream where, they're getting additional, I think it's like over $200 million a year. And they're going to be able to really plan out some long-term maintenance and new construction projects now that we weren't giving them a shot beforehand. So I think it'll be a great thing.
What else is on the agenda for the special session? I believe I saw something like 100 bills need to be passed.
Yeah, probably most of those will probably just be approach bills. I haven't heard, and everybody has kind of hoped that there's not much added to the call. I've kind of expected it's going to be a clean call, special session call from the governor. I hope it is just to get the budget done. If it, there was also some weird things, like we created a Department of Tourism during the session, and now we have to go fund that. And so that, I don't know how that plays into calling a special session, but I wouldn't anticipate like a bunch of general laws being called into that. I think at this point we pretty much wrapped up our general laws for the year, and people don't want us wasting money I've heard $100,000 a day it costs us to have a special session. I don't think people want us wasting money. Just get the budget done and come back next year,
Yeah. What did you get done in Jackson this year that you're most proud of?
I thought the tax bill was great. I tried to work as much as I can on judicial redistricting, as much as I could. That is, we did a complete overhaul of judicial districts in the state of Mississippi based on population shifts and trying to make the judiciary as efficient as possible. I think we came up with a good plan that helps the whole state and my district specifically. Seafood labeling bill was big for the coast. I thought that was great. A lot of these restaurants down here, there was a study showing, 70-something% were serving imported seafood and advertising the other way around as domestic. And now this is going to force, these restaurants down here, which I think will help tourism credibility. They got to label it as domestic or imported product when they're selling these things.
Yeah, I think that's critical for the restaurants and certainly gives the local restaurants that are using locally sourced seafood an advantage. When I come down to the coast, I want shrimp out of the Gulf, man.
That's right. I don't want anything else. But obviously the tax bill was huge. There were so many components to that. I think that was the biggest bill of the session. But there were some things like that are really important to the coast too. The other two I mentioned, and the direct wine ship. People are really excited about that when they go to these wineries and Napa, or whether they go to Europe or whatever, and they can finally have some wine shipped to their house instead of calling an aunt in Louisiana or something and asking if that'll be all right.
But where you dropped the ball on a couple of important issues, not you personally, Jimmy, but the legislature, on getting online sports wagering passed, and the very important school choice issue that I think so many people want to see passed.
I'll keep voting for online sports betting. It's going on. It's going on whether we want to accept it or not. It's black marketed. Everybody has access to it. It's not hard. So I'm going to keep supporting it. I don't know if it'll pass. We'll see. We'll do everything we can. I don't know. It's a great bill in my opinion that has limitations.
The state is missing out on so much revenue. The numbers I've talked about here on the show with when I've filled in for Richard or Gerard, like $40 to $80 million a year that the state is missing out on by not passing online sports wagering. And you're right, it is going underground to oversee sports books.
Yeah, and at least this one's had an added consumer protection part of it, where you're not just running up a credit card bill on this. It's got to be confirmed cash. And so I don't know. I think all the concerns are legitimate. But they're all being addressed, and hopefully we can get that bill through in the future. But you never know. I learned pretty quickly. You never know how that legislative session will go.
And what about school choice?
School choice, we're still moving bills out of the education committee in the House. I am on that committee. Voted for a lot of good school choice bills this year. It's not as big of an issue where I am because of our schools, our quality down here, but there's a lot of areas in the state where we're passing great bills to try to help kids that are more or less stuck in a bad situation. And it's a shame they don't ever see the light of day, or at least have a conversation. But there might not be an appetite for it over there right now, but maybe something will change, and I think we'll still put good bills in that direction.
State Rep Jimmy Fondren here on Mornings with Richard Cross. Great to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Scott.
State Treasurer David McRae will join us next on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk Mississippi.
Scott Sands in for Richard this morning on Super Talk Mississippi. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Next hour, Archie Manning will join us, and Iulia Mendel, the former press secretary to President Zelenskyy, will talk about the latest in the Ukrainian-Russian peace talks and a big prisoner swap announced earlier today. State Treasurer David McRae is joining me now. David, it's nice to meet you.
Well, good to see you. Great to meet you, and glad to be here this Friday morning.
So the Mississippi College Savings Program is taking enrollments now, but it closes at the end of the month. Tell us about this program, which is great for parents who are planning for their kids' future.
Well, this is our college savings program that we have offered at the state for quite a while now. It's our 529 program. It's a way for parents, grandparents to pay and help their grandchild save for college. These are great plans. We have two fantastic plans we offer here at the State Treasury in Mississippi. It's our prepaid. One is our prepaid plan, which is if it costs $1 today, it'll cost $1 tomorrow. And, you can always guarantee two things in life. I can put a third now. Death and taxes are always going to be a guarantee in life, but now you can guarantee college tuition is going to go up. So, the idea is that if you could prepay that today, you're saving your child from debt. And the other one is our our max plan, which costs as little as $25 to start that plan. And that is a little bit more flexible than our prepaid one. That one can go to room, board, tuition, parking passes, food, things of that nature. It's very, very flexible, but it's very affordable. We've seen an increase in both plans by 30%. And you said it right, and I'd be amiss not to bring this up, but the prepaid one only shuts down at the end of the month so that we can reevaluate it based upon tuition increases that the colleges will be doing over the summer.
So how does the prepaid one work? Do you have to lock your kid into which university, which college they want to go to, and the kid wouldn't have a choice if they change their mind when they graduate?
Oh, of course not. No. The way it works is that if it's they can go to any college they want, and it's really for public schools, public institutions here in Mississippi, HBCUs, community colleges, things like that. If they want to go to private school, there is a formula on the website that will figure that out, but it's really meant to go to public institutions here in Mississippi. But all it does is just locks in a rate today, how much it costs. So again, like I said earlier, if it costs $1 to go to college today, it will cost $1 later. We see most people using these plans when their child is first born. So I can guarantee you in 18 years that college tuition is going to go up. We see a lot of people using them before their child gets to third grade because if you do the math, around third grade is halfway to college. And we see people locking them in. But there is never a too late to lock in a prepaid college tuition. The idea that these funds and these 529 programs have, the basis behind them, is to make sure, one, your child goes to school and college and get them into college. But the other is to not have debt. I mean, we see in the national media, we see in the state media, debt is a massive problem here nationally and locally. The average tuition in the last 20 years has gone up 133%. In Mississippi, since I've been here, it's gone up 6%. And, debt is such a burden upon young people when they graduate. It affects major life decisions. It affects when they have a family. It affects where they work. It affects when they buy a house, if they ever buy a house. And, we always talk about the brain drain here in Mississippi. I mean, every politician will talk about the brain drain. And one of the main factors of the brain drain is debt. And if a child can go and with as little as debt as possible, graduate college or with no debt, then they can stay here in Mississippi and have great productive lives. And we want them to stay here in Mississippi.
Well, not to necessarily go on a tangent, but I think part of the reason why these tuitions continue to climb as rapidly as they do is the way the federal student loan program has been structured, and students are making decisions about long-term debt for their education, and colleges in some cases are taking advantage of that by continually raising their tuition rates, knowing that the student loan program is there to pay for it and put these kids who are 17, 18 years old into debt before they even get their first real job.
Well, you're right. I mean, that is it. And, colleges are a business. Let's not forget it. They have to build new stuff. They have to have new dorms, new parking lots, new things. And those cost money. I mean, you're always it's essentially an arms race. Colleges are. Ole Miss is in an arms race with State or Southern or any other school in Mississippi. And, you have to keep up with the Joneses, essentially. And, as time goes on, that's going to cause tuition to go up. And, again, if you can lock in a rate today, then you're well ahead of the curve. I mean,
what are tuitions in the state these days?
They are. I would have to look. They're more expensive than they were when I went to college 25 years ago. So.
Yeah, and it's certainly more expensive than when I went to Spring Hill College, Jesuit University in Mobile. I would not have been able to go to college without going into severe debt had I not been able to win a scholarship to Spring Hill College. Even then, in '87, college tuitions were unachievable for a lot of people with my family's financial background.
Well, what we're seeing now especially is that we're seeing a lot of people going to community college for the first 2 years of their college experience and then taking the basic classes that they need that they would have taken their freshman or sophomore year at Ole Miss or State or any other in-state school, and then kind of knocking it out of the park at the community college, getting a scholarship, and going straight into what would be finishing their last 2 years at a 4-year institution. I can attest to this personally because I had an intern at the Treasury who was into accounting, and she got a kind of half scholarship to Mississippi State and decided that she wanted to get a full scholarship. So she went to community college down in Laurel Jones and killed it and got a full scholarship to State and transferred to State. So that saved money, and I think she used her college savings account for the community college and then got a full ride into the 4-year college.
That's the smart way to do it. And of course, not to take anything away from the trades and the trade schools either, you don't necessarily, although I think that there are so many benefits to a college education, there's some great job opportunities in skilled trades as well that can let you get a good job, a well-paying job without the expense of a 4-year university.
Well, you're right. I mean, I've been touring the community colleges all around the state for the last year and a half and talking with the presidents of these community colleges, touring the facilities, touring their vocational training programs, talking really in depth to them about that. But you're right. There are such great jobs that these community colleges are training young people to do. A welder can make, $80,000, $90,000 here in Mississippi. A nurse can make $90,000. A plumber, which is almost impossible to find in Jackson, can make around $70,000, $65,000. I mean, these are great jobs. These are great jobs that pay very well, and you're going to 2 years or a year and a half of school, you're going to be making more money than most people who are graduating a 4-year institution. And not to say that you can't go back to college after you're done. And remember, the idea is no debt. So if you're making money, then the likelihood of you having any debt upon going back to college at an older age, then you're probably not going to have debt.
State Treasurer David McRae here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Tell us how the 529 program works, where you go to sign up, what you need to know to sign up for it, and the deadlines.
Well, the deadline, to sign up, let's start there. That's the best thing. To sign up, you go to treasury.ms.gov. We have a ton of information there. You can sign up from there. If you still have questions, you can email my office. You can call my office. They'll be more than happy to talk to you and get you one that works for you, whether it's the prepaid one or the max plan. And the prepaid one only, it closes for the summer. It'll open back up in September, but it closes for the summer at the end of May next week, and it'll open up back up right after Labor Day in September. And if you want to lock in a cheaper rate, I can't guarantee it's going to go up, but it might. But if you want to lock in today's rate, you need to do it within the week.
Does this money come out pre-tax?
It does.
And that's another great benefit.
So I wish I could explain more about the taxes, but when I went to law school, I avoided tax classes like the plague, and so I went more finance. So here we are.
Yeah, it's a great program. I think everybody that believes their child will be going to college should plan and look into this program. If your child decides not to go to college and you've got that money there, is it withdrawable? How can you use that money if you don't use it for a college?
Well, if you don't use it for college or you get a scholarship, we see this all the time. And the child doesn't, you can get that money back. It's yours. It's free and clear. And we explain that on the website. So treasury.ms.gov if that's something that's affecting you today.
And that's why the other 529 program that includes books and meals and dorms and everything else could be beneficial, because there are so many add-on expenses when you go to school that you're not taking into account besides tuition.
There are a ton of add-on expenses. I mean, it is just add-on upon add-on. So,
State Treasurer David McRae, great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi continues. I'm Scott Sands.
From the Venable Glass.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Archie Manning joining us in about 10, 12 minutes here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Congress is headed home for the Memorial Day break. They left town quickly yesterday after voting on the big, beautiful bill. The Senate knows their next job. It's to pass it before July 4th. Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas saying we need to go back through that bill with a fine-tooth comb and make it better. Every time Congress touches a bill, it always gets better, right?
Of course.
The specifics are going to be different, but it's hard to imagine Senate Republicans making drastic changes. The main focus will be the extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts. No taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime pay, and other tax and spending items. A day after the big, beautiful bill passed, President Trump was more than ready for the Senate to start work on the next step, saying on Truth Social, there is no time to waste. Now it's time for our friends in the U.S. Senate to get to work and send this bill to my desk as soon as possible. White House also signaled it would not tolerate Republicans voting against the plan. Caroline Leavitt was asked if President wants Thomas Massey, the congressman from Kentucky, and Warren Davidson from Ohio, challenged in their primary for voting no in the House. And she said, I believe he does, and I don't think he likes to see grandstanders in Congress.
Hey, buddy, it's to stay with the theme here of, working in a kitchen. You have way too many Gordon Ramsays in the legislature. You got a whole kitchen full of cooks. And they all are experts.
And there are a lot of egos. And there are a lot of members of Congress who love the cameras to be focused on them. So I'm personally going to be interested to see how Republican senators handle the issue of spending cuts and deficit. Because let's be honest, in this bill, there are a lot of these cuts that aren't real. And my outlook, my view of the Senate is kind of the same as the House. I've got a hard time imagining a scenario where this bill collapses. But that's not to say it's not going to be without debate or without controversy. And I can see no votes coming from Rand Paul and maybe Ron Johnson because of the deficits. As of my vote count, they could lose 3 senators and still pass the bill, still win with a tie-breaking vote of Vice President Vance. So that's what we're going to watch when the Senate convenes to talk about some of these tax cuts.
That's Friday math with Scott Sands right there, man. Right. I'm impressed that you deciphered that. Goodness.
Spent a lot of time
I didn't even look into that. I'm like, we'll find out soon enough.
Well, I talked to some members yesterday. We were supposed to have Michael Guest on yesterday when I was sitting in for Gerard, and he canceled last minute. And then I realized, that's because everybody's getting on a plane right now. Everybody is getting the heck out of D.C. I did talk to a couple of Ohio congressmen off the record. So I won't use their name, but they essentially told me the inside deal and the problems that they've got with this and where it looks. And there are a lot of people, I think, who are upset at the lack of cuts to spending. This plan adds more money to the deficit than the big, beautiful bill did. But there are so many aspects of it that are part of the Trump agenda that made it a yes vote for them. But I don't know when we'll ever see something happening with cuts, which is what
has it ever happened? I mean, when was the last real time that government, top down, said let's trim some fat?
Let's give credit where credit is due. The Clinton administration actually worked with Congress and was able to reduce the deficit.
Oh, yeah, you did it with base closures, too. A lot of those were happening under Clinton. I'm not picking and choosing what you decide to cut, but that was where they found a lot of cutting.
When so many of us voted for Donald Trump, we also voted to embrace the cuts put forth by Elon Musk and Doge, but so far, nothing has been submitted to Congress by the Trump administration or any members of Congress, for that matter, to make any actual cuts. It was back in April that the White House confirmed plans to draw money back for public radio, public broadcasting, as well as foreign aid spending, but none of that has even been sent to Capitol Hill. And that's not the only thing that's been delayed. Lawmakers still don't have the president's full budget for 2026 yet.
I'm with you. The platform sinks quickly. We are 100 days around, into this, but midterms come really quickly. November is when you get to September, November. We're a few months from this.
The big, beautiful bill passed because members of Congress, especially the representatives, will start running their primary campaigns as soon as the summer is over. And there was all the excitement around the Republican Party about voting for Doge cuts, and it's run completely out of steam. Even Elon Musk says now that he's not interested in politics anymore, and Congress hasn't voted on anything that he did. He's essentially a persona non grata at the White House now, and I think that's very disappointing. Republicans can talk a good game about fiscal responsibility when they're running for office, but as soon as they have the power, even though it's a slim majority right now, suddenly that fiscal responsibility has been out the window. And even though I believe the big, beautiful bill needed to pass, especially for the tax cuts, I got to have a little respect for members of Congress like Thomas Massey that said, hold up here. Where are these cuts that we promised our voters, that we promised the American public that need to be done? And a little bit of antagonism from the president to primary him now, I don't think helps the Republican Party in the long term, because we're supposed to be the party for fiscal responsibility, and we've got to prove that at some point. We can't just keep talking about it. We've actually got to do it and make those cuts, as difficult as some of them may be. Archie Manning joins us next here on Mornings with Richard Cross.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The Saints battle back from a 16-point deficit. But with time running short, the Packers still led by 2 as Archie rallied the Saints for one last gasp. Seconds remain, and the outcome rested squarely with the team of Hill, Blanchard, and Zarro. The air game's perseverance and Rich Zarro's clutch kick combined to give the Saints a dramatic come-from-behind victory. New Orleans' first win ever in the Superdome. A preview of things to
I'm Scott Sands, sitting in for Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, and this man needs no real introduction other than that right there. It's the legendary Archie Manning. Archie, it's so nice to talk to you.
Well, it's my pleasure. Boy, that was a mighty long time ago.
So I'll be perfectly honest with you, sir. I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, but you were playing at Ole Miss before I really knew what football was about, or you may have changed me over.
Well, thank you. But Alabama's a pretty good team to play for. Through the years, they play some mighty good football over there.
I was a Saints fan during your era, though, at least, so I've got that on my side.
Well, that can be painful back in my day, but fortunately, a few years ago, the Saints got it rolling and finally won that Super Bowl.
You and your family have had such a tremendous impact on the sport of football. Does that resonate with you at all? Do you realize how impactful you and your family have been on the sport?
Well, been really blessed. Olivia and I have been married for 54 years. We were blessed with 3 boys. All 3 boys have given us a lot of joy through the years. And I'm not talking about Super Bowl. That was fun, but we didn't try to raise quarterbacks. We really just tried to raise kids. My wife's done a great job, and we've just been blessed. Our son Cooper has been a joy. Cooper was really the best athlete of our 3 boys, and unfortunately his college days got taken away from him with a spinal cord problem. But he's done well in business. He's raised a great family. And then, of course, Peyton came along and had a good run at Tennessee and played a long time in the National Football League. Had a lot of success, and that was fun. And Eli kind of right behind him, playing for the New York Giants, and they had some good times. So we count our blessings, and it's been a fun journey. I can tell you that.
Well, and you raised such great men as well. I can't speak to Eli, but I lived in Indianapolis during Peyton's run with the Colts and had the opportunity to meet him several times and work with him on several charity projects. And he just made such an important impact in the community of Indianapolis during his time there, from the Peyton Manning Children's Hospital to numerous other charity organizations. So you really instilled those important values in them as well.
Well, thank you. That has been such just a fun ride. Indianapolis, of course, the Colts left Baltimore and went to Indianapolis, and that was kind of a struggle for a while. But for when Peyton went there, it just one thing they put a good team around him, and Tony Dungy had a lot to do with that, and they just had some great years. A lot of people, of course, the Patriots is phenomenal what they did when Bill Belichick was there, winning 6 Super Bowls. But during the decade there, the Colts won more games than the Patriots did. The Patriots won more Super Bowls, but the Colts won more regular season games than the Patriots did. So they had a good run. They won a lot of games, and it was fun for that community. It's a good community in that great Midwest town, and it was fun for us to be up there on Sundays and be part of that.
When we're talking about the impact that you and your family have had, it's not just the kids, it's not just your career, but also the Manning Passing Academy, which has developed and improved the skills of so many players that have also achieved greatness along the way.
Well, we never envisioned that we started this in 1996. It was Peyton's idea. He was a college player, and he went to a camp when he was in high school over in Birmingham called the Bowden Passing Academy, and it was Coach Bowden from Florida State and his sons. Peyton came back and said, "Dad, we need to start a passing camp." And I went down to Tulane to talk to a young coach named Buddy Tevens, and we started the camp. And we had 185 kids at Tulane that year in 1996. I knew it was going to grow. I thought it would kind of be a regional thing. I had no idea it'd be a draw nationally, but we ran out of space at Tulane, so we went over to Hammond, Southeast Louisiana, and we were there 8 years, and we outgrew that the space they had, the field space, and we just didn't have any more grass there. So we went to Thibodaux, Louisiana, the home of Nicholls State, and they had their intramural fields and their practice fields and things on campus, but they also had a 10-acre field behind the stadium, and that's what attracted me to move the camp there. And the last weekend in June this year, we'll be going down to Thibodaux. It'll be our 29th year, and we'll have 1,500 campers. I have over 250 people on my staff that we put on that camp for 4 days. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been. I
think I saw something like 30,000 kids have come through the camp.
The boys have never missed a day, a minute of the camp. So it's been fun.
We're talking to the iconic Archie Manning here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Archie, as it happens, some news from college football yesterday, and you were on the inaugural college football playoff selection committee. Yesterday, the committee announcing that they were going to expand by another 2 or maybe even 4 teams. Your thoughts as this expansion continues? Are there that many good teams that deserve to be in the playoff structure?
Yeah, this going. I'm not sure where it's going to go. Of course, I was on that first committee, and for years there we just picked 4 teams, which is hard. And I always said the 5th and 6th teams really going to be mad. So they expanded, and last year I said, well, they got 12 teams. I said, well, the 13 and 14 will be mad, but I guess you don't care when you have that many. I think they'll expand it a little more. They made a good move yesterday by not taking necessarily a conference champion. They're taking the highest ranked and that it should be in the rankings to make the playoffs. Last year, they had a couple of teams that got a bye that really shouldn't have been getting a bye.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As we saw the outcomes of those games, we could probably talk about this topic for hours. Archie, your thoughts on NIL and the transfer portal and how it's affected college football. A lot of attention has obviously been spent on Arch at Texas, and your family's had an interesting approach to his career at Texas so far.
Well, it's turned college football upside down, no doubt about that. I think if we could go in and interview coaches and they could express and talk about it, just how miserable it is for them in the system now. It's really, I know a lot of them are paid well, but I don't care. It's just almost not fair to the coaches to recruit hard and get a kid, and he doesn't play his first year and he's gone, and he goes somewhere, and then you don't know whether some of them don't know whether to recruit high school kids or recruit portal kids. So the combination of the NIL, there's nothing wrong with NIL. There's nothing wrong with some kids being able to put some money in their pocket, but we definitely need regulation. We don't need pay for play. We don't need kids getting negotiating with various colleges to leave one school and go to another. So we've got to get some regulation, and I hope it happens in the near future.
If they're going to get paid, there should be some sort of contractual obligation to stay with the school for a minimum term in exchange for that money, whether it's held in escrow or otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. And I think two portals dates during the year is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous to have a second portal thing right after spring practice. I mean, it just makes it so difficult for the coaches.
How much money do you think you would have been able to make in NIL if that existed when you were in college?
I don't know. I got some buddies. My old freshman team, we had a great bunch of guys, and we have a thread, and it goes back and forth. And on that thread, they just call me 18. Some smart aleck one day put up on there and said, well, 18 was doing NIL back in the 60s. Not true.
Let's dispel all of those rumors. Archie Manning, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great to be with you. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Archie Manning, Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Iulia Mendel will join us next. She is overseas and former press secretary to President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. We'll talk about the latest in the peace talks next.
From the Venable Glass.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands, sitting in for Richard this morning. Iulia Mendel is joining me now. She is former press secretary to President Zelenskyy and author of the book, The Fight of Our Lives, My Time with Zelenskyy, Ukraine's Battle for Democracy and What It Means for the World. Iulia, it's great to see you again.
Scott, thank you for having me.
So this morning, an announcement of a major prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine. Do you think this is actually going to happen, and what does it mean moving the peace talks forward?
Well, up to now, it seems that the exchange of prisoners is, let's say, the solo only achievement that has been reached and has been confidently reached by the both sides, Ukraine and Russia, in Istanbul. And Ukraine stays optimistic, and this might be the biggest exchange of prisoners since large-scale invasion in 2022. But let me remind you that since Russia first invaded Ukraine in Donbass in 2014, Ukraine and Russia have conducted a lot of exchanges of prisoners. It's the matter that, there are more Ukrainians coming to Russian prisoners again because of the war that continues. But of course, we all stay hopeful and hope to see it happen, because Ukrainian office of the president thinks that the next stage of negotiations can happen only after the exchange of prisoners.
And will there actually be the next step in these peace talks? We've heard talks about a ceasefire coming, and Russia continues to strike inside Ukraine, and Ukraine is, as we've talked about, fighting for their lives.
Well, that's the question up to the God and perhaps to the devil, right? You never know what's going to happen next. As you saw, Ukraine launched the Peace Forum last year in June in Switzerland, and that was the promise for the second stage where Russia could have been present. And the plan was that the second stage of the Peace Forum would take place like in November 2024, but it never happened. So, of course, there is always a chance that the process will be disrupted. But what we see right now, there is a big push from Western countries. There is United European countries, not only European Union, but European, with the UK and France and Germany. And of course, the push from President Trump was the major one. I was talking to the office of the president recently, and the first thing that I've heard that we're going to continue the negotiations because the American administration is pushing us for this. So we really rely on our Western partners because we feel like they are the only ones who can help us guarantee that if we move forward with the peace process, then, perhaps Russia won't advance. But at the same time, the talks stay only the talks because Russia hasn't stopped its advance for a day or for an hour. And I must say that it's very complicated. As I mentioned in my book, The Fight of Our Lives, now, the peace process is very, very complicated, especially with two nations, where there is so much trauma and anger. But right now, if we are speaking about the ceasefire, it's very important that there is some kind of a document negotiated and signed by both sides that would suggest the technical details of how this ceasefire actually will work. So, for instance, who's going to monitor the violations? Turkey is suggesting itself, but also we know that there is OSCE, right, that has huge experience in this types of conflicts. Then what is going to be the punishment? Is there going to be the withdrawal of troops? How do we react if there is the violation? And without the document signed by both sides and agreed conditions of this ceasefire, I don't think that ceasefire is likely to happen. And let me finish. I'm sorry that I'm talking too much, but if this happens, then perhaps there will be a chance for negotiating something bigger, some bigger deal for the people. But right now, I must say the war continues as it was. And as we are talking right now, Odessa is recovering from Russian missile strikes. As I read the latest news, there were at least 2 Russian missiles that made hits in Odessa, and soon we will be counting wounded, and I hope no dead people.
You've got a special insight into President Zelenskyy, and we all saw the heated confrontation with President Trump in the White House. I think the president is now saying that he recognizes that Vladimir Putin doesn't really want peace either. I think the rest of the world wants to see peace. Certainly the people of Ukraine want to see peace. How do we achieve that when both sides are making unreasonable demands for the ceasefire and for peace negotiations? Russia wants territory that they haven't even conquered yet. Ukraine doesn't want to give up any of your territory at all. And wants to join NATO, which will not be allowed to happen. The American support for continually sending money that we have not seen any accountability from Zelenskyy on is losing taste with most Americans today. So how do we move this forward if both sides are at this kind of an impasse?
Well, so you're asking difficult questions, Scott, and I would like to have the answers for all of them. But let me just tell you that President of the United States has, a lot of truthful points, and you mentioned a lot of them. It's very difficult to reach any kind of ceasefire or peace when both sides are not agreeing for any kind of compromises. Let me just talk for the people of Ukraine. I don't think, I was writing in my blog for Substack that I don't think that there is any kind of united point of view on this matter. And you should understand that at least the third part of Ukraine is struggling every day. It's like literally hell. And I'm from Kherson, one of the regions that is being shelled every day with artillery, missiles, drones, and air-guided bombs. And I have relatives there. And I also, work and talk to the journalists and people from Kharkiv and Zaporizhia and Chernihiv and a lot of people from Donetsk and Luhansk. And I feel like they have different point of view than those people who live further to the west and are not sheltered so much. And I feel like many of these Ukrainians, they would like to agree for any conditions to stop dying and, to have some kind of diplomacy. But, diplomacy works. When diplomacy really works, then the shelling, is silent. I think we need someone really smart and committed here to peace. And I'm not sure I'm the one to answer your tough questions today about the compromises.
We're talking to Iulia Mendel here on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. What is the attitude of the people of Ukraine? And it may vary region to region depending on how attacked they are by Russians. Are you feeling less support from the United States and from your allies? And is that discouraging? How has that affected the morale of the soldiers?
Yeah, I was talking to people from the military and also military general staff, and they said that they noticed the disruptions in delivery of weapons, and that played some role. Let me just say that all Ukrainians, we all rely on our military because they are committed, and we saw how our soldiers, grew up to this war to be professionals, and we don't doubt in their commitment. But when it comes to our Western partners, we see commitment from many sides, but we don't see the unity. And unfortunately, there is this huge gratitude because we wouldn't make it to 2025 unless, Western countries wouldn't stand for us. So it's not like, I'm not saying this with gratitude, but obviously, there is no unity, and obviously, we do not get enough now. But it's not the problem only of Ukraine. Let me just extrapolate this, because what I see that many Western countries, European countries, say that they even do not produce enough weapons and ammunition to stand against Russia. And Russia is advancing here too in production of military stuff. So this is not the problem of Ukraine only. I guess this is already the problem of the countries who stand for democratic ideology and who stand for the norms that we all have developed since World War II.
This may be a difficult question for you to answer, but would the peace talks be able to move forward? You're used to it after the last few years of you and I talking. Would the peace talks be able to move forward more quickly if somebody else was in charge of Ukraine? I mean, President Zelenskyy has suspended elections. He's been in office longer than he was elected to serve. Should there be a change in Ukrainian leadership, would that help progress the peace talks perhaps?
That's a very good question and very unpopular, I might say. President Zelenskyy has just started his 7th year in the office. quite a lot. No other president of Ukraine has stayed for such a long time. And, I know from inside that there are plans for having elections, but it's not very easy to organize. So it's all about the people of Ukraine, and it's all about the ability of Ukrainian leadership actually to organize the process so that people can vote.
Her book about her time as press secretary for President Zelenskyy is The Fight of Our Lives, My Time with Zelenskyy, Ukraine's Battle for Democracy and What It Means for the World. It's available on Amazon. Iulia Mendel, it's great to see you again. Stay safe.
Thank you, Scott, and have a good weekend, everyone.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, available everywhere, streaming audio and video at supertalk.fm. Scott Sands, find me on X at Scott Sands Media.
From the No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Stock market had a big sell-off pre-market on an early morning announcement from President Trump on Truth Social of a 50% tariff going into effect on the EU starting June 1st. The Dow is down 336, NASDAQ down more than 200, and the S&P is down 50. However, a little bit of a bounce here on the opening bell, and it seems to be recovering. We'll see if that holds. And Lance, you were in the financial markets yesterday. There was a bond sell-off as well that also triggered yesterday's drop. So we've seen, I think, 3 or 4 red days.
Yeah, the bond world's scary. I've traded bonds an awful lot. It doesn't operate like equities, and it's a stated market. There's a lot of fat in the middle between brokers where trades move from one to about the fifth, entity, and a lot of prices get in there where it's this acceleration of price. And so sometimes you got to be real careful with bonds. They can get overpriced a little quickly, if you get markups in there. So,
I think they hit record highs yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, when a lot of trading's happening on bonds, you see a lot of movement in the price too. You also, bonds have the inverse relationship with interest rates. So if rates go up, bond prices go down. It's got to reflect the original yield or coupon of the $1,000 or whatever the original pricing of the bond was. Some can sell at discounts, some can sell at premiums. But yeah, what you really worry about is debt has to be capitalized. There has to be equity behind it, right? For the debt to be valuable. If there's no way to pay off the debt, then it will drop like a rock as far as its face value. Rates will go outrageous, and we had a major problem back in 2008 with that. Inversion of the yield curve was a great signal of major problems to come. They did come, and the government had to step in and bail out banks for stupidity and sloppiness. And you just hope we don't have to deal with that again, because the debt world is the one you got to worry about.
Saw an interesting take from one of the economists that I follow yesterday on X that President Trump may actually want a recession, and that kind of goes against his economic policies in a way, but this person pointed out that a recession would achieve most of Trump's economic goals all at the same time by lowering inflation, lowering Treasury yields, lowering trade through tariffs, interest rate cuts from the Fed, lower oil prices, and after that surge in the Treasury yields, the Trump administration has realized that trade deal headlines aren't necessarily going to work anymore. So a recession may be the quote-unquote best solution after years of inflation and free money. I found that to be an interesting way to look at this.
Yeah, don't tell
Not
Americans
exactly
that.
It would be a very painful solution, I'm afraid, but
I think
it is
going to be
one
painful.
way, I guess, to look at this.
A painful solution is coming one way or the other, right? I mean, you're not going to disrupt the global trade world without creating some major hiccups and spots in there where maybe even the train goes off the tracks. That's reality, because you don't know the future, and the world's economies are so interconnected now. And American companies operate internationally more so than ever before. So, yeah, it's a global world. It's much smaller now as far as being able to deal in other countries and other currencies and all that. So Yeah, I mean, the contagion effect of if America loses face and the economy goes into recession, what does it do to the global economy as well? And so those are some of those, price of tea in China questions and the butterfly effect. But yeah, those are real concerns.
What we've seen from President Trump is he could announce at 7:45 this morning that there's going to be a 50% tariff, and by noon today, those tariffs may be lifted.
They very well could be. And it's a game that most of us don't understand because we don't play that game. And he's playing high-level chess with folks playing high-level chess. These are very brilliant people at the tops of organizations that manage money and manage risk, also the global leaders. So, he's looking at things in a much different way than we are. I try to keep that into perspective when we talk about the economy. And no one wants to see a recession as a solution to the issues we have.
And nobody wants to see our 401ks dropping like a rock either.
Well, we went down 4,000 points, 5,000 points from the highs.
It recovered,
but everybody
recovered right away.
But everybody was upset during that time period because it is everything that most people have saved goes into two things. It goes into their retirement accounts and bank accounts, and it goes into their home. When you start seeing those go down, when the values of those go down, people have a tendency to be very upset. It's like when you get an undercooked steak and you ordered it a certain way. Don't mess with people's food and don't mess with their money.
Yeah, or you get an overcooked steak.
Exactly. So, those are the two things I've learned in life. Don't mess with people's food and don't mess with people's money. And if you do that, generally the ball keeps rolling along. But, yeah, when we get those hiccups in there, that's when folks have a tendency to get a little upset. And I don't blame them. Yeah.
And despite the roller coaster stock market that we've seen and the roller coaster tariff talks, people still seem to trust Donald Trump when it comes to handling the economy. And I think that's a testament to the reputation he has built as a business leader and some of the negotiating tactics that he has employed in these trade talks, that eventually it will pay off, but there may be some difficult times in the interim until those deals are struck and manufacturing returns to the U.S.
We've talked.
It's a long-term play.
It is, and attrition from the employment of so many government workers. Maybe we'll see, some of this being codified by the legislature, who is in charge of making law, and hopefully we'll see decreases in the spending in the places where we've seen cuts, as you said earlier, haven't been really put into the law of the thing, but we've seen graft and corruption and greed rooted out. We've seen a lot of people that have been recalled from their jobs.
We've seen it rooted out, but we haven't seen anything actually done about it.
No, and that's where I think the legislature has to do, as you mentioned. I mean, that's the law group. They have to come up with the solutions based upon what has been uncovered. And so far, we haven't seen that, and that's part of your point earlier. I think well made, is that once Republicans get the opportunity, they have exhibited time and time again that they have a tendency to get to fighting each other rather than solving the issues that need to be solved. So Trump has done a lot of work in 100 days, and he's, I think, given the legislature, Congress, an opportunity to make some changes here, but they have to step up and be a part of the solution. And Americans voted for cuts. They did. And we need to see those codified. We do.
It also comes down, I think, to trust in who we trust, not just in political office, but the people around us. And there was a fascinating story earlier this week that when it comes to trusting other people, some people are backing off. There was a study done by Pew Research which shows the number of people who responded that they would say most people can be trusted is down considerably from 46% in 1972 to 34% in the most recent study.
Well,
we generally don't trust people anymore.
Well, I think that comes with all of the connectivity, all of the information, all the data that we get. People are much more capable of looking into things, as before maybe you needed somebody to help you research, and now I think everything's kind of right out there. It's hard. I mean, you got a lot of fake news, but it's much more accessible.
I think the skewed political approach of mainstream news media, which tend to lean in one political ideological direction or another, help exaggerate this critical divide we have among the left, right, and whoever's left in the center. And there's the obvious fact, too, that people in this politically divided culture don't talk to each other nearly as much as we used to 30 years ago. And if they do talk to each other, they're not listening to each other.
There you go, right? I mean, no, I think Thomas makes a good point here, and on the text line, and no one really wants to admit that our quality of life is based largely in our ability to buy cheap goods and have disposable income. And that is part of what America is today, right? We want cheaper goods, and we want to have disposable income. We like to travel, and we like to go out to eat and do the things that make us feel happy and give us some freedom. But that's where we are. We've become addicted to the cheap goods. We've become addicted to the trade imbalances. We've become addicted to debt ceiling increases and all that. And at some point, we have to get back to what truly made this country great. And I hope that the president is focusing on those things by bringing business and bringing investment back. That's a slow process, but he's really been on a meteoric pace in doing that. So this is not going to solve quickly, but a recession won't happen if you continue seeing, I believe, the investment into this country from American
is absolutely
and
coming in at record levels.
Yeah. So I think there's the worry, but as long as he keeps up the inertia and keeps that momentum moving, I believe that we'll be able to stave off any kind of truly economic, catastrophic things that would hurt folks, even if it's momentarily. You may see some gyrations, but I'm hoping that we don't see some massive sell-off. But I do believe that comes with two pieces. Trump has to continue bringing in business, and Congress needs to do the things that they were elected to do.
So back where we started at the beginning of the segment, the rebound that began at the opening bell has fizzled. Everything is now red. It's like a Kenny Rogers roaster on the
sign is blinking.
Yeah. I see one stock. Let me see if I can isolate who this is. It is Intuit is literally the only green stock in the entire.
It's the contrarian today.
It's the only one that seems to be doing well, and I'm not sure I would trust that right now either. Mornings with Richard Cross continues. We'll wrap things up. I'm Scott Sands with Lance next year on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Scott Sands here. It's been fun to sit in with you, Lance, and again for Richard Cross. Gerard, earlier in the week, I did Wednesday and Thursday with middays, and Gerard will be live today at the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum at Camp Shelby to get us ready for Memorial Day weekend, which, as we think about it, it's not about going back for that third hot dog or worried about what beer and grilling you're going to have. You've got to remember the original meaning of Memorial Day and all of our troops that have sacrificed, made the ultimate sacrifice so we can go out and get that third hot dog and have barbecues and enjoy the summer and a 3-day weekend. 1.2 million men and women have given their lives over the past 250 years to put us in a place where we can kick back, relax, and enjoy that hot dog and the brisket on the grill. Any big plans for the holiday weekend?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm going to watch a lot of SEC ball, but again, reflecting back, I've had a life that has been wonderful, and, grandparent that served in World War II, my grandfather, and he was one of those that would sit there and talk to you about it, and you would learn so much from the perspective of that generation. And I hope to sit back this weekend and reflect a little on those days and the honor that he gave me of learning about the sacrifice that Americans must make in order to keep this place free, and also many other places on the planet. Also had a cousin that did several tours in Nam. He retired from the Marine Corps. I've spent many years with him. He's about 80 now, and I would, I'd love to give the Colonel a call and just tell him how much I love him and appreciate all he did for us in this country. So, I mean, that's what it's all about, and I hope everybody gets a chance to reach out to someone, a service member, someone you love. Even, I would say, law enforcement. There's so many retired military there, and just, say thank you. And I hope that we all put it into perspective this weekend, because we're free for a reason. And it's because of all those folks that have served and many who have died for us.
If you call the Colonel, give him our love as well.
Yeah, he's something else, man. He got to retire. He's from Mississippi, retired, spent, a good bit of time in the private sector after retirement. He taught at Annapolis. I had an opportunity to go spend time with him there. And it was funny. One time I was there, he looked at me and said, "Hey, let's run." I said, "Yes, sir." And he's about 6'5", high and tight, shaved every day, always the flat top. And I said, "Yeah, where are we going to run?" He goes, "Well, let's run over to the gym." I said, "Yes, sir." He lived in Crystal City at the time. I said, "Well, where's the gym?" He says, "Well, it's over at Arlington." And so we jogged all the way over to Arlington, went to the gym on the military cemetery site, and I worked out with a bunch of Marines, and it was really one of the coolest things. And then he said, "All right, let's run back." And so we ran home. It was like a 10-mile round trip with a workout in the middle. I was like, "Yeah, this is the Marine Corps."
Can we get an Uber?
No. And he talked the whole time. I mean, the whole time we jogged. It was but it was wonderful, and getting to see all of the freshmen, and he was in charge of them at Annapolis, and getting to be on campus and stay there on site and meet generals, and it was just something. As a 12-year-old, that was my first time there, and it really just stuck with me. It really did, and so yeah, I'll be just thinking back a lot this weekend. I think, yeah. What about you? What you got going on?
I'm going to watch some baseball, the Ole Miss game. I'll watch this afternoon after the Weenie 500, the 6 Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles that are racing, I believe, at 145.
Well, maybe if they had an air guitar competition with that, yeah. I don't know, man. Goodness.
I will
bring Joey Chestnut in.
500. I'll also watch the Indy 500. I want to see Mission Impossible. I want to go to the theater for a change and see Mission Impossible.
Now, do you eat at the theater, or are you just like a popcorn and Coke guy?
I will probably get some popcorn. That's interesting, because I've been on this weight loss journey for about 15 months, and I've dropped 100 pounds.
Fantastic, man.
And so I'll try to avoid the popcorn. Is hard to resist at the theater.
How can you? Yeah, especially that fake salt, the yellow, whatever.
And the fake butter.
Yeah, fake butter and fake salt. Like, thank you.
My doctors actually encouraged me to eat butter. It's as long as it's grass-fed butter made with cream and salt, they say that's fine. So I'm the guy that's now making my own bread and using grass-fed butter. And
have you been on like the carnivore diet? Have you done greens? And I mean, what has been the corpus?
Hell of a lot of protein. They got me eating like 100 grams, 150 grams of protein a day. No, okay. I'm taking the shot. I'm on terzepatide.
Okay.
But it's
that the one Trump was talking about?
Yeah, and there are some changes coming down with that too. What did Trump call it? The fat shot.
Yeah, he had a hard time getting it out. Yeah.
I can't speak highly of it enough. Diets have never worked for me. I've been a chunky guy my whole life, and the shot has been. I am now able to order pants from Amazon. I've had to go to the fat kid store for the last 20
years.
You're
looking svelte now, man. Feeling good, looking good. And, hey, great show today. Thank you for everything you did today.
Archie Manning was amazing, wasn't he? I was so happy that he agreed to call in. It was fantastic. Richard will be back Monday. I'll be back for Gerard, I think, on Thursday, and Richard on Friday, if I've got that straight, if I'm invited back. Lance, you have a great weekend, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Super Talk Mississippi and everywhere on supertalk.fm. You can find me after the show on all the social medias. Look up Scott Sands, or on X at Scott Sands Media. Have a great Friday, a safe weekend, and let's, again, remember what it's all about.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.